Archer joins the show. Welcome to the Card Show and this show. How are you today?
Good, man. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So, we were kind of talking about this a little bit beforehand, but what has the vibe been like for AEW? Because obviously people know the in-ring product, but the crowds are something that really sets it to the next level. So what has it been like having to obviously ease back in the time of Corona?
I think initially it was one of those things that, again, it caught everybody off guard in such an amazing way. My physical debut for the company was in front of the last time we had an audience, which was in Salt Lake, and then everything hit hard and everything shut down, and that's when everything kind of really changed. AEW, to their credit, has done an amazing job from day one of this, of structuring very professionally and handling everything very well and very professionally, considering how stressful this whole situation has been in the world, making it a very unstressful professional environment for all the guys and girls that are there, keeping us very safe, taking care of the talent and the crew and everybody in a way that, they didn't even have to because of the situation. It's one of those situations where being a part of AEW truly does feel like a family, and I know people say that all the time, and it sounds like a pop-out answer, but that's the reality of how we've been treated since this started. Even before this started, and when I started to come into the company, part of the reason that I even chose to be a part of AEW was the way they made me feel, and I wasn't even with the company yet. It was just the way that the conversations went leading up to actually signing with the company and being a part of the company. And then obviously with what has happened around the world, and then how it's changed wrestling as a whole, how it's changed the world as a whole. Look, we're doing this interview right now with a mask.
Right.
I didn't live in Japan, but I went back and forth to Japan for 8.5 years. And that culture does wear masks on a more consistent, regular basis. You go over to Japan during flu season, people wear them all the time, and that's just part of their culture. Whereas in the U.S., never happened. If you saw somebody wearing this, you were like, oh my God,
I would have freaked out, yeah.
And now everybody's doing it. It's just kind of a part of what we do and how we do to protect each other and things like that. And so the fact that AEW has handled everything in such a professional and structured manner from the very beginning all the way through this and every step of the way, it's been really comforting to be a part of the company just based on that.
Are you excited that I just saw y'all released, I don't know the exact date, but coming up you're going to start opening it up, tickets for sale for 10% capacity.
Yes.
Are you excited? Are you nervous to have the fans back? I know the majority of your professional life is fans, but we've changed it up a little bit. Are you more excited, nervous? What's the vibe?
I'm very excited because, life is life, and everybody has to find a way to move forward and do it comfortably, and that's what we're all trying to do, and that's what AEW is doing. With the 10% capacity, it's a very small, limited, controlled environment, but that's what we're trying to do is move forward, and this is one of the very first steps, and to do it in a way that is going to not only make the talent and the crew and the people part of AEW feel safe, but we're also doing it so that we make sure that the fans that are going to come and join us and help us move forward, they feel safe. And I think it's only a part of it. I luckily enough got to do my first fan event with a small company called Warrior Wrestling out of Chicago, and we did an event it's run by the school system and the principal and everybody there. They run it amazingly professional. And we did it on a football field. We had the ring set up in the middle of the field.
Really?
They sold group tickets, like you had a family, people
you could be potted with them,
And the closest set of people to that group, it was 2 to 6 people in the group. I think maybe they had some 8, depending on the families that came. But the closest people to that were 15 plus feet away.
Gotcha.
So it made everybody feel safe. And even when we were doing the meet and greets and things like that, the fans were very respectful of the rules and how to maintain distancing and do all that fun stuff. And I think that's one of the things that AEW is trying to do with the business is move forward in life and move forward in everything that's going on, and this is one of the first steps.
Now, obviously you talked about your excitement signing with the company. Right. How much does it help too when you come in instantaneously in such a prominent spot, doing your thing with Jake, obviously going up against Cody, who is one of their marquee players, of course, and one of the co-founders of the whole deal.
Right.
How much does that encourage you, knowing the trust that they're like, here you go?
Right. It's one of those things, like I came in an amazing point, an amazing spot, amazing opportunity for me, which was part of the reason that I made that decision to join AEW. I'd like to believe that I've caught them off guard in the best way possible.
Yeah.
But I think they were confident knowing that they were getting a top tier talent. But then once I got there and did what I did and was doing what I was doing, and the combination of Jake and I and what we presented, together, I'd like to believe not only for them, the fans, and everybody that maybe knew who I was from a little bit of my time prior, and the ones who truly followed New Japan and the worldwide wrestling scene, that they went, okay, this guy's legit, more than what they expected. That's what I'm hoping.
How do you feel like last year's G1? We're really going to get into the weeds here. Do you feel like last year's G1 opened some people's eyes, because unfortunately the stigma is, oh, you're the big lumbering fella. It doesn't matter. Like if you're a certain size, people just start to assume. And so when they saw like top-notch match after top-notch match, do you feel like that opens people's eyes in terms of like your ability to work and not just be a big fella?
Yeah, I'd like to believe so, absolutely. The G1 was one of those things that I've been a part of a tag team, KES, Killer Elite Squad, with
former tag team champions.
Yeah, Davey Boy Smith Jr. We were an amazing tag team. We did great things together. But that came to an end. Davey chose to go different directions. This was my first real opportunity with New Japan in a singles capacity. I did done a match with Will Ospreay, who subsequently became the match that everybody knows from the G1 in Dallas. We did a match in that March of 2019. And I think it was one of those matches that, again, like you said, the company knew who I was. They knew what I could do. They had confidence in me to put on a solid performance and things of that nature. But they didn't really think of me beyond that. And then Will and I went out and put on a match at the New Japan Cup in March of 2019 that they all went, wait a second.
Yeah.
You can do that? Because Will is up there in regards as one of the
He's
most
ridiculous.
amazing wrestlers in the world at the time. And still is, so the fact that I was able to go in the ring with Will Ospreay and toe-to-toe, step-to-step, move for move, things of that nature, they all just went, wait a second, that's not the same guy we thought we had. We didn't realize he could do that, and people have an issue, not an issue, but they go, oh, you're a little bit seasoned, we'll say it that way.
That's very polite.
In comparison to Will, whatnot, and in age-wise. So yeah, when the opportunity came around for the G1, I think it was one of those situations where, again, they saw what I'd done in the New Japan Cup. They knew who I was and what I could do. I don't know if they had the confidence in me to continue to do what I did. And then Will.
It didn't stop with that match. It was just over and over and over. You were like best match machine in this thing.
Thank you.
I don't want to take too much credit, because I didn't know that would happen in the Ospreay match, because you assume like, oh, you got Okada and Tanahashi. That'll obviously be the best match. And then you're like, well, hold on just a dang minute here.
That was the fun part. And again, for the people within the company and the people who did see Will and I's match from the New Japan Cup, now we're at a point where, like in the New Japan Cup, there was no expectation. Now coming into the first G1, and literally the first G1 match outside of Japan, on U.S. soil, on live TV, because we were on Access TV Live that night. The very first one. The other matches were, tag matches and things like that. So Will and I were the very first. It's like, this is the G1, let's start, let's go. Will and Lance. Everybody knew Will and everybody knew what he could do. Again, there was a lot of people that didn't know what I could do. And again, I think we topped what we even did that last March. And it was to a point where people went, what is going on here? What did I just see? And it was a proud moment for me to be able to go, yeah, I can. You just have to give me the right opportunity. And then, like you said, I tried to continue that on through the G1. And, the G1, the rest of it, again, you had to be more of a true hardcore fan and followed on New Japan World and things like that. It was on Access, but, in kind of abbreviated ways and whatnot. I think that was part of my coming out in a way to make people in the wrestling world go, wait a second, he, like you said, he's not just a lumbering big guy. He's somebody that can keep up with 2020 wrestling, but as a big man in business, which I think is actually one of the hardest things to do in the business of professional wrestling today in 2020 wrestling, is be a true big man in this business, because it's become so athletic, it's become so exciting and so acrobatic and so just, whoa, amazing all the time. To be a true big man in the business, I think, has become kind of a lost art form. And to be able to kind of create a hybrid version of that, of being a true monster big man in the business, but also be able to keep up in 2020 wrestling, has been a fun challenge for me. And being a part of AEW, which is a company that exudes amazing wrestling on a very, very consistent basis.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to keep up with that, it's been a fun challenge.
Now, I don't know how much we can go into depth and how much you feel comfortable speaking on this, but what do you envision as the future or the market space of AEW? Because I think about it in terms of like TNA. Obviously, they've still been around, but what people thought their market space has been is really ebbed and flowed over the years.
Right.
What do you envision kind of the progress of AEW being?
You know, like you said, to TNA or Impact's credit, they're still here, still kicking. You know, AEW's at a time in the business, you know, it's crazy because this epidemic has changed the world so drastically. It's one of those things that, you know, we were on such a high road, we were rolling and going and whatnot, and we still are. Even through all this, you know, our ratings have shown that, and people are still paying attention and watching us, and it's only getting better and better and better. And hopefully, you know, as things start to move forward, like I said, if these fans are coming back on the 27th, if that increases and improves and keeps going, if we can get back on the road and start working and, you know, getting to the people instead of just having to watch us on TV. You know, TNT has shown the confidence in us, you know, extended the contract for 2023.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's only a possibility, especially with how things have gone, because now people are starting to understand the world as it is, and they're starting to move forward together, and they're starting to understand the safety and precautions they need to take on themselves and for other people and things of that nature. And as we all move forward together, I think that people can understand that AEW's product is never going to wane. We have so many amazing wrestlers. Now we have such an amazing roster from top to bottom in different ways. It's not just, you know, one kind of style of wrestler. We've got monsters, and we've got high flyers, and we've got some of the best women in the world.
So I can still hold out hope for that Luchasaurus feud? Are they really going at it?
Hey, one day, I guarantee you. I mean, there's a lot of monsters, matchups that haven't happened that can't happen. Luchasaurus, Wardlow, Jake Hager, Brody Lee, obviously, Brian Cage. You know, it seems like a lot of fans have put out that they'd like to see the Machine go.
Yes, I would like to see that.
So, you know, there's so many cool matchups that haven't happened yet. You know, obviously I got to fight Cody, and that was my first time ever doing that. I've only had like very small moments in the ring with the Bucks. You know, Kenny Omega, even though I spent time in Japan with, never got to be in the ring with him. Pac, who's I think he and I could put on a very brutal match that people, you know, wouldn't expect to see when he gets to come back to the company. So many cool matchups that haven't happened yet, with the possibility of happening, that each and every time that they're set up to happen. You know, I think it's going to become a very special moment each time those do.
So if you're watching this live, Dynamite tonight on a Saturday, and then otherwise usually Wednesday, especially once we get these pesky NBA playoffs out of the way, get back normalized.
Silly basketball.
Labor Day weekend, got another pay-per-view coming up. Lance Archer, appreciate you jumping on very, very much.
Yeah, like I said,
One quick question.
Go for it.
Most memorable ever match?
See, that's a hard question. You can't even ask that, because I've been wrestling for 20 years. I've had opportunities to wrestle around the world with so many different people. I mean, I'll just say most recent, most memorable thing was probably just the fact that I got to work. It was in the Tokyo Dome against Moxley. It was my first singles title defense. You know, 40,000+ people in the Tokyo Dome. You know, again, I've been able to work the Tokyo Dome several times before, working as tag team champions, getting to ride motorcycles in and do all that fun stuff. But this is my first opportunity, just me and Moxley, a singles title, the U.S. Championship. You know, he got lucky and put me through a table. Otherwise, you know, I kicked his ass. But you know, I just, in most recent history, in that sense, maybe it's that. You know, and then just being able to be a part of AEW, even during this crazy time, you know, getting to work Double or Nothing with Cody for the first ever TNT Championship. I mean, that just having Mike Tyson there and the match itself and everything that went into it, you know, you can't help but go, that's pretty damn cool.
A lot of thunder in that match.
I have to revisit that Moxley feud at some point as well, I'm sure. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.